Thank you for double-clicking your mouse tonight. You're listening to the Midnight Frightcast in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Awesome possum. All right. Hi, kitties, and welcome to a very special episode of the Midnight Frightcast. We are celebrating Women in Horror Month. My name is Maddie. I'm one of your hosts. Joining me this evening, as always, is Greg, the doctor of filmonomics, who is somewhere sitting on Josh's lap, I was told.
I'm not sitting on Josh's lap. That's a falsehood.
Okay. Well, whatever. In your mind, I'm sure you are.
There's so many comments I could make right now, and I'm just not going to.
You might as well.
No. You're actually in-house, so we don't pick on you that much. So
lame.
Yeah.
And we have guests. Come on. Sitting, I'm sure, at the head of the table is Patrick, the doctor of everything else.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And we also have Josh. Josh, what's your PhD in again?
I do not have mine yet. I suck.
Okay. We'll figure it out. And joining us, we are really, really excited this evening to have two really special, really awesome people. We have Miss Dorothy and Miss Heather. Hi, ladies.
What's up?
And as we said, we are celebrating Women in Horror Month tonight. So we have two really amazing people who are here with the local film scene. And they're just going to talk a little bit about, kind of what it means to be a woman in horror. So let's get started.
Yeah.
We were just talking before the cast. What were we talking about? Sorry, as I said, I've been drinking. But I just want, Heather and Dorothy, could both of you just introduce yourselves to our lovely listeners and say a little bit more about what you do and just kind of how long you've been in the Nebraska film scene.
Sweet. Yes. Hey, this is Dorothy. I am a director, writer, producer. I've been in the Nebraska film scene since, maybe the late 90s. And I've got 3 horror features that are out. You can watch them all on Prime. Some of them are on cable on demand. Yeah, I think that kind of covers my plan. What I'm up to horror-wise. So, yeah.
Okay, and I'm Heather, and I do effects and makeup work, prop work, costuming sometimes. I sometimes provide my child as an actress.
Always with the love on the set, keeping everything chill.
I've been told I'm the cheerleader to kind of keep morale up.
You are. I've been on set with you, and you're like the only cheerful one at hour 20.
Good problem solving. Heather's got the mad skills.
Yeah, I try to think outside the box whenever I can.
Awesome.
And how long have I been doing this? Since about, it's been 2000, and I think Kaylee was 7 years old or something like that. So we're talking probably 6 years, I think I've been working on this.
We'll just kind of go back and forth, and I'm going to ask you guys some questions. I guess the men can jump on and ask questions and put their 2 cents in if they want to, but this is going to be a very estrogen-filled cast. So
only Patrick could ask questions.
Yeah, so only Patrick is allowed to ask questions.
For once, I don't have a response.
Whoa,
oh, my Lord.
Speechless.
He's keeping that rapier wit in its in its sheath. Good work.
We've got a long night ahead of us. Before we kind of hopped on here, Dorothy, you were talking about your trip to California. You want to tell us a little bit about what you were doing out there? Besides, I don't know if you were enjoying that sweet legal weed.
Yeah, I do want to talk about my awesome California trip. I went out with my creative partner, Chad Hochschild, and we went out to do 2 things. We went to hang out with our friend Dustin Ferguson, who's out there making a crap ton of horror movies. And then we wanted to meet our friend Royce Dudley. He is a guy who is operations manager for a small studio in Canoga Park out there. So we got a tour. We got to hang out with him, chat with him a little bit. That was pretty sweet. And we got to run around and with Dustin and do a bunch of shooting. We shot there's a weed puppet guest star show. It's been described to me as like the Yo Gabba Gabba for stoners, which honestly, Yo Gabba Gabba could be for stoners just in general, but this is with like celebrities that are like into weed. And so like Andy Dick and Tommy Chong, and it's puppets and just craziness. And I think that Adult Swim is looking at picking it up. So we got to do a little puppeting, do a little hanging out with that. And then we met like an effects guy out there, a guy named Joe Castro, who's doing some Friday the 13th effects work. And we got to see like his inner workshop, and that shit was crazy. He was showing us things that, of course, I was like, can I take a picture? He was like, no, this hasn't come out yet, blah, blah, blah. But stuff that looked like real, you just wanted to touch it, like it's alive, isn't it? Yes. Don't wake it up. And then we were incredibly fortunate to get to have meetings with Brink Stevens and Kelly Maroney, two amazing 80s scream queens. And so it was an awesome trip. A lot of driving, but an awesome trip.
Where in California were you?
We were kind of all over what I think of as like LA proper. We were in some of the sleeper communities outside to the east of LA, like Marietta, Riverside, Corona. And then we went as far as Oceanside, California, little Top Gun, aspect there. Then we were in Hollywood when the Oscars were going on Sunday and everything was all shut down. There were helicopters everywhere. So yeah, we probably crisscrossed the radius of, probably 200 miles. I don't know.
Oh, I'm so jealous. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was great seeing the pictures that were getting posted up on Facebook and everything else. Every time you'd hit a new place, you'd try to drop a picture and everything. So it was really, really kind of cool to, follow along as you guys were moving around.
Lived vicariously through you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Oh, go ahead, Maddie.
I was going to say, I did see those puppets, and I was like, what is going on?
My favorite is the weed nugget puppets. There are little baby weed nuggets, and then there's a big mama weed nugget who's always like mad and yelling. Oh, it was so adorable. And yeah, all of that social media stuff is Dustin. Dustin's had mad skills when it comes to social media. He's like, oh, we got to, catch this moment, put it up there. So yeah.
That's awesome. Do you plan on going back out there anytime soon, or?
Yeah, I was telling everybody here at the table that Chad and I went out there originally because we're trying to take a next step for our filmmaking. We are trying to figure out how we can either go out to LA and shoot for like a long weekend with some name actors, or bring some name actors to Lincoln briefly to have them be in our next feature or our next projects. So we wanted to kind of make some connections. We wanted to see if we could make it financially viable. And so that was kind of the beginning of that. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to go out again this year and kind of continue with that. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. That sounds really cool. I'll go ahead and ask both of you this. What really got you into the horror genre?
Oh, goodness. Well, I was a theater major when I went to UNL for a short time, and then I switched over to art, and then it wasn't until I was working at my regular job where someone had said, hey, there's somebody that has auditions up. So I auditioned, and I didn't get a role, but they said, hey, we see that you're an artist, and we need help. And so that was Matt and those guys at Dead Lantern. So I started on Isabel, and I knew nothing other than just doing Halloween makeup. And so just on myself, Halloween makeup on myself and whatnot. And so I just kind of sank or swim, that's pretty much it is, you got to make this stuff happen. And we were in Aurora, so we didn't have a lot of options. So it was go to the general store and find whatever you can that can squirt blood out of it. And so I'm making blood at the kitchen table and, using a lot of cotton balls and latex and all of that.
And condoms.
So, yeah. Yeah, Maddie had the condoms, so we could fill those full of blood, and we stabbed her quite a bit with a pitchfork. That was fun, squirting blood all over the place. Yeah. So my introduction was working with Maddie, so that was fun. It was stressful, and it was fun, and so I didn't know that there was anything for film in. I didn't even know if I would like being in film. My stuff was being in plays and stuff like that, and so when I found out about the film scene, I was like, oh, wow, this is kind of cool. Like, I didn't know that any of this stuff existed here at all. I mean, I knew there was a Johnny Carson theater and all that, but I didn't really know that there was a group of people doing this. So it was a whole new world to, and it's definitely it's broadened my life. The fact that I get to meet all these different people and I get to try these different things and just tell myself, okay, if it did or didn't work that time, what can I do to make it better the next time? And so it's that constant learning, and it doesn't get old, So I enjoy it. That's how I got in.
And your daughter got into it too.
Oh yeah, she loves it too. She's actually she got accepted to the Arts and Humanities school, and they only accept like 20 kids a year to go into that school. So she's part of a very small, a select few, and she loves it. She feels like it's her people. She finally found her tribe, because not to knock regular, normal high school or elementary or anything like that, but it's just when you have a group of people. And this is what I've told her a lot, is one of these days you'll find your tribe, you'll find your group. And that's what I had found. I was like, I found my people that I feel comfortable with, that I can act goofy. I was a cheerleader in high school and I would act weird, and they lovingly gave me the nickname Freak because I would act weird and just do weird things. And I would always have like the movie references just boom right on top of everything. And my daughter is very much like that. And so I said, you will find your group. You'll find your people that you feel comfortable with. And so she's finding that with the arts group. And so she's been writing scripts since she was 11, and she hopes to direct. She's been in quite a few, shorts and movies. And so she really enjoys it. She's helped me on some of the sets with props and whatnot. And so, yeah, she really enjoys it.
I love that. Pass that torch, Heather.
Mm-hmm. She's my minion. I've got two minions because Dylan's showing quite a bit of skill with his Lego and drawing. And I mean, like, it seems weird to say, oh, look, he can do Legos. He's artistic. Well, it is. That's literally building blocks of where you start is if I put these together in this formation, it looks like this. Well, he's really showing promise. So it's like, yeah, I got two minions now. Exciting.
That is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Agreed.
What about you, Dorothy? What got you interested in horror?
My horror interest is, let me go back to say, when I was growing up, my mother was like, no horror. It's
Same with me.
Yeah, you can't watch that. Mm-hmm. But I was a huge reader. So I'm reading Stephen King, scaring the shit out of myself. Meanwhile, my mom is totally into true crime. And it's funny to me, and I think that this is just like a mother-daughter thing, that she never saw the connections between true crime and horror.
Yeah.
Like, we'd have conversations at dinner tables about her going, and the murder scene. Blah, blah, blah. You're like, as a kid, I'm like, let's problem solve this. Who killed her? Or whatever. And so the other thing that I think, and I've thought about this a bunch, is I love genre. And the two genres that were primarily around when I was growing up in terms of movies were like teen comedies and horror. And so those were just the things that I loved to watch the most. I was really about those. I mean, they're, certainly sci-fi, but there was just something about horror that I really enjoyed. So I had always wanted to be a filmmaker. And originally Star Wars and Terminator were the two things that I really clicked for me. And Terminator is great because it's like a horror action sci-fi, it's got all the genre right there. I didn't think that I would ever be able to be a part of filmmaking. Maybe I would get to make the posters. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be like a graphic designer or like an illustrator or something like that. But at some point, it must have been when I was living in Boulder and video cameras suddenly became so much easier to get access to. I was like, fuck that. I want to make movies. Give me that camera. And so when Chad and I got together and we started talking about how are we going to, what are we going to do? I want to get distribution. I had seen a movie called Fear of Clowns that a friend of mine had seen. They'd rented it at Blockbuster and they were laughing. They were like, it's so bad. And I was like, I have to see that movie, which I saw it. And then I was like, if someone made Fear of Clowns and it got in Blockbuster, I'm pretty sure that anyone can make a film and get it in Blockbuster. It's all about who you know. So I was like, let's make a horror film. And that's how that happened. Yeah.
What was your first horror film?
Gosh, what was my first? I think it was one of the Friday the 13th, because I too, it was no. I think it was Nightmare on Elm Street. Actually, my parents were like, "Why would you want to watch that crap?" And so it's kind of funny that I do this now, and they don't necessarily watch it, but they support me, and they're like, "Oh, that's great that you're doing that," but they're not going to necessarily watch everything. So I kind of show them some of the lower key stuff, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool." But I had a friend in high school that she watched it all the time, and she was a big reader, avid reader. And so she would watch it, and so I'd spend the night at her house. And I don't remember which one it was, but it's the one where they kind of start breaking the fourth wall in Nightmare on Elm Street, where Heather Langenkamp, she's playing herself. I can't remember which one that is. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And so we're sleeping, and she's got butter knives attached to her fingers, and she's like, Heather.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, oh, you bitch. Oh my God.
She's a terrible person.
But it was
terrifying.
But it was awesome. So I was like, okay, you got me. That's pretty cool. But yeah, I want to say that was my first one was Nightmare on Elm Street. So that series.
That's a good one too, because what a classic franchise.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's, looking back on these things, not thinking about it when I watched them, but looking back at them now, I think, holy shit, they used a sheet for a wall and he pushes through it, just some of these things. And so I'm like, oh my God. So every time I watch a movie, I don't want to say that it's ruined for me, but every time I watch a movie, I think, how did they do that? Or, oh, I bet you I know how they did that. And, even my kids, I'm probably going to go to hell. I let my kids watch horror movies, but they're kind of desensitized to it, because they're like, oh, I've seen, even my son, Dylan, who's 5, he's like, I've seen mom look like a zombie. I know that's fake. And even my niece, they've done the same thing. They've said, hey, this is makeup. This is what your aunt does. And so it's kind of helped her along to not be so scared of it. And so this taboo about kids not being able to watch. I mean, sure, obviously there's some things they should not watch, but some of the lower scale stuff, if they learn about the process, then I think it, you can still get scared, but it eases the scare, and it doesn't make you so freaked out.
Or they just introduce the zombies to the kids like 5 minutes before they're filming, right, Josh?
Right.
Yes. That's it.
No, Kaylee wasn't scared of anybody though. When she was on remission, she was like, "Hey, everybody."
But aren't you concerned that when the real zombie apocalypse happens, that he's going to be thinking, it's not real?
Kaylee, though, she's got it planned. She's like, I know where I'm going to go. I know what I'm going to do. I know what type of weapons we need. It's like, she's got all this stuff from Dead Rising. She's like, I know how I'm going to make this weapon. She's got it all figured out.
She's got World War Z. All the
she does.
Pages are dog-eared and underlined.
This is exactly what we're going to do. We're exactly going to do this right.
Is she going to Costco? Because that's my plan.
Actually, her first plan was to go to the elementary school because when she was younger, because she's like, the gymnasium has bars on the 2 windows. There's like no windows in that room except for 2, large doors that have bars on, like the crisscross bars on the windows. And they're like really small. So it's not big enough for someone to try to get their way in. And she goes, I'm staying in there. And all of the doors, they lock during school. They lock so people can't come in from outside unless you have a button to press it. And it's like, that's pretty good. That's a good idea. And you got the gymnasium so you can run around in circles, You got to get your cardio up so then when you do have to go for a supply run, then you're ready.
Oh my God.
I think I digressed us. I don't even remember. What was the question? No.
It was, what was your first horror movie? And now we know exactly where to find your daughter during the zombie apocalypse. So
right.
That also works.
Yeah.
That is one of the things I love about horror is it helps you plan for terrible events.
Honestly, it does.
I mean, I've read articles about that where they're like, in essence, we live in such a time of like plenty and peace that watching these movies maybe helps us go, oh yeah, what would I do? Mm-hmm. How would I react? How would I not get killed? Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Yeah. I believe it.
And Dorothy, what was your first horror movie?
The first horror movie that I ever saw was on a first date. God, how old was I? Probably in the 9th or 10th grade in high school. And the guy that I was with took me to see a movie called House by the Cemetery. which is by an Italian director named Lucio Fulci. If you watch it now, you will be like, what the fuck is this shit? It is shot
Patrick's
in
looking for
Italian and overdubbed in English, which in the 9th grade, I don't know how I missed that. I'm going to tell you something. That movie is like a horror fairy tale. And I don't mean like castles and princesses. I mean like dreamlike and surreal. Like, what is happening? It like got into the fabric of my being. It scared the shit out of me. I watched a whole bunch of it through, like hands over my eyes. We went home after that, and good luck to him. I was no kiss, nothing like that. I was like, let me out of this car and into my house where I can barricade myself in my room and think about what just happened here. It was a great movie, and I've rewatched it since then. It is ridiculous. It's so bad that it's good. Everybody kind of has a movie like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what this one is for me.
I think I need to post a link to it on our Facebook page now since you talked about it. So, because I brought it up here on IMDb, and
You should.
Yeah, I had to watch it
even
now,
the poster
too.
is kind of ridiculous.
It is
So maybe you
nutso.
guys
Yeah.
should review it for your next podcast.
Like, no.
We should do that for like one of our 15-minute Frightcasts. That would be fun.
Yes. So that's the first horror movie that I ever saw.
I'm pulling up the poster right now. This is fantastic.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Well, what about you, Maddie? What was your first one? What was your first one?
Well, both involved clowns.
Hot.
But I remember, so when I was like really little, I was afraid of literally everything. And I don't know what changed, but all of a sudden I was like, Mom, I want to watch Stephen King movies. And I don't know why, except for I think it had something to do with the movie Cujo, and I always have loved dogs. And so I was like, doggy. And so I remember I started kind of watching Stephen King movies, and my mom she was a huge fan of horror when she was probably like in her early 20s, but by the time I'd come around, she was like, I don't want to watch this anymore. But she always would watch horror movies before I watched them, not to make sure they weren't too violent, but she wanted to make sure there was no titties in it or no sex in it. Which makes sense to me, I
so
suppose.
American. I love
Yeah,
it.
I know. I was like, Mom, you're the most American person. I love
I don't care if they decapitate someone, but you ain't seeing no titties.
it. Yeah, you better not see a nipple, even though you have to.
Right.
But the first time I really got into horror was also with my mom. We were at the movie theater, and I saw a poster for Freddy versus Jason, and I was like, oh, what's that? And she says, oh, not this shit again. And then that's when she told me that in the 80s, she told me about the two series in the 80s, Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, and I was like, oh, I need to watch them. And so I started watching the Friday the 13th series, and oh my God, I got disgustingly into Freddy versus Jason. Like, I had it as like my computer background. Like, it was ridiculous. And then after my nagging, my mom took me to go watch the movie in the theater. And that was I don't know, my first real horror experience, in the theater. And it was kind of weird. There was a ton of people in the theater, and there's this creepy old guy next to me that jerked off at some point during the movie.
What
It
the
was
hell?
really-
The total horror experience.
I got everything, and I just have never looked back. Luckily, no one's jerked off next to me in any more movie theaters.
You know.
Do you remember?
That you know of, yeah.
Do you remember what part of the movie that was happening?
No, I don't even really remember what he was
It's when
doing
his
over
mom is
there.
on the screen,
Just
and she's like, I love you, Jason.
So
yeah.
So now we know why you don't like to go to movies at a theater.
Yeah,
I know it's
clear.
probably some deep-seated fear of being. This is in
got Pee Wee Herman next to you.
2003. Yeah, someone like Pee Wee Hermaning me. So that.
We love you, Paul.
I didn't even have to pay for a psychologist. Thank you, Patrick.
I enjoy how you just use the word Pee Wee Herman as a verb.
Yeah, I love the term Pee Wee Herman. I can't even say it.
We all knew what she meant, too. We were
Exactly.
like, yeah, nobody wants that. Maddie, I have a quick sidebar question for you, and it is this. Were you attracted to Freddy at all? And I asked because I had a next door neighbor girl who he was like a romantic love interest for her, and I was always like, what the?
No, I was always on Team Jason. And I do actually think Robert Englund is an attractive man, but I don't think he's attractive as Freddy Krueger. Also, the whole him being a child molester thing, that kind of turned me off a little bit too. So it's not what I'm into, but
that charismatic villain.
Yeah, you've talked about Hellraiser a lot, so I have to throw out, what about Pinhead?
Sexy?
No, what the hell? No. What next? Or am I attracted to the Blob? Like, what the fuck?
So, okay, this is really good for me, and I appreciate you answering that question, because now I can go, okay, so that's not like a regular thing, as I originally suspected.
Suspicion confirmed.
No, that's Ted Bundy that everybody's thirsty over. I think your neighbor was
that guy.
No, your neighbor was special in that, and I check up on her.
Yes.
She has a shrine in her back room.
Yeah,
was she the same girl that had knives on her fingers? And
yeah, like what about? Did she ever say like what about that attracted her?
I gotta be honest with you. I assume that it was some of the later Nightmare on Elm Streets where Freddy gets a little more jokey and kind of in control of some of the kids that he's killing. You know what I mean? So it seems a little more us versus them as opposed to him just like killing kids as a regular guy.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I was like, he's a short child molester. I just don't get the appeal. But, you know, what have you.
But those accordion arms, you know. Those accordion arms. They can wrap right around you.
Those snappy one-liners.
There you go. Yeah. We all love a one-liner king.
True.
This took a turn.
I know this is. I'm going to go to the next question.
Sidebar over.
You guys have both been in horror for a relatively long time. What has your experience been as a woman working in the horror genre?
Heather and I just looked at each other.
Like, what?
I'll say this. When I lived in LA before I came out to Lincoln, and one of the reasons that I wasn't that interested in sticking around in Los Angeles was I felt, not that anyone really ever said this to me, but I felt that I would end up being a cog in someone else's machine. That I wouldn't have the chance to lead something myself because there would always be someone more aggressive and like elbowing me out of the way to do what they wanted to do. It's kind of like growing up during like the early video game revolution. For me, the boys were always like, you can't play that. Give me that. Click, 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 click. They're like having a great time. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening. And I don't really have the time, I guess, to like take this controller away from you. I'm just going to go do whatever I want to do. Yeah. So when I came to Lincoln, that was a big thing that I really thought about. And it really came true for me too. I felt like I met people here who were willing to be a part of my team and let me call the shots. And that was awesome. So I would say that's probably been my general women in horror experience.
Yeah, I actually thought about this because I assumed that this would be one of the questions that would come up. And everyone that I've worked with, I haven't really had anybody that's like held me back saying, I don't think you can do this or anything like that. But I think it's more me holding myself back, not being assertive enough. Like I've been told by a couple of people, okay, you need to be the one to say, hey, this is how this effect is going to work, and this is how you can shoot it, because, otherwise it's not going to work. And it's hard for me to be assertive, and I think it's just a personal thing, not necessarily being a woman, but I find myself taking issue with taking that lead in that respect and saying, okay, this is how it has to work, because, it can't work any other way. And yeah, I know you want this, but it's not going to work that way. So yeah, I would say that would be my experience. Is it's not necessarily other people pushing on me. It's me pushing on myself.
I just quickly wanted to say this too. And I feel like in Los Angeles, women, this is not entirely true, but women in the entertainment industry are objectified pretty hard. And being sexy is a very important part of your power there. Mm-hmm. But it also makes it difficult for you to be a boss because you're always kind of an object of desire. And my experience is that dudes are not really interested in the object of their desire also calling the shots and telling them, what the fuck, you were late, or I need you to get over here and carry this, or whatever it is, or no, that idea is good, but it's not good enough. We need to try again.
Or if you're pushy, it doesn't happen very often anymore, but if you're pushy, then it's, she must be on the rag.
Oh my God, fuck that. Well, we'll talk more about that later. But so in Lincoln, one of the great things is I feel like you can be a person here. It doesn't really matter what your gender is. You know, it's not so much about is she hot or do I want to fuck her or what a fucking bitch. It's more just like people, I feel like, literally look at you based on your ability to do the work that you want to do, the ideas that you have, and how you execute. And everyone's like, that's how I make decisions on who I want to work with. And I'm crazy grateful for that.
Yeah.
LA is great when it comes to connections, but it don't have that. So
You almost, and that's what you were saying, you wanted to bring people out here. So it's like, I want to take some of those LA connections and bring them to this like pond, this bigger pond, so to speak.
true. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm really happy that no one's had a super negative experience in the Nebraska film scene as a woman. That makes me happy.
Yay, Nebraska.
Yeah, good job, guys.
That's right. That's right.
Going towards like female characters in horror movies, do you like how women are typically portrayed in horror movies?
That's a tough one because there's always the person that's the bimbo, obviously, and nobody really likes that character. But I don't want to say that, here's
So
one.
let's die first.
Here's a favorite one of Josh's, The Cabin in the Woods. So you almost have to have, I don't want to say you have to have those tropes, but you kind of do. You have to have those roles. And so, unfortunately, it's usually a woman that gets thrown into the bimbo. That doesn't mean that you couldn't have a guy that's like that. I mean, seriously.
With some low-cut pants? Yeah, that'd be great.
But no, I mean, like, seriously, you could technically have that role reversal, but it just doesn't happen very often. And then it seems like you always have typically in horror, it seems to be it's the final girl, and they're always virginal and stuff like that. And so they play with that in that movie, saying, well, I'm not a virgin, but someone had to fill the role. And so she had to fill that role. So it kind of feels like there's two positions. Well, three. There's smart girl, there's the Velma, there's the Daphne, and there's, I don't know who else we can think of for the final girl. But there's if you think about it, it's the non-hot chick that's really smart. So it's kind of funny that it's like, why can't you have a hot chick that's smart? But it's the non-hot chick, it's the hot chick, and she's going to die first. And she almost always is topless. Almost always. At some point in time. She's usually running topless without shoes. And you're like, oh, God, your feet, It doesn't matter that you're like flapping in the wind, but your feet, And they die in just insane ways, in ways where you're like, you could have gotten away, but you somehow stopped and fell on something, a pebble, and you're leaning up against a tree and you die. And then you have that final girl. It just kind of feels like those are the only three types we have. I don't know. That's just my opinion on it. I feel like there's only those three roles.
It is kind of weird when you think about when you just think about like the mass of horror movies and how it always seems like, in let's call it 90% of the time, it's dudes killing girls. Sometimes, and boys too.
Yeah.
But girls. And I don't know if there is some primitive thing in us that likes to see that male-female energy come together. You know what I mean? That is a predator-prey scenario. Huge. Hardcore. That is the return of like innocence ultimately triumphing over evil, but only when it's been, tortured and covered in blood. Like there's really just such a journey there. I was not ever aware of the final girl scenario until probably like 3 years ago. Like I never thought about that trope that often. I guess I just didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
I feel like some of them, like take Nightmare on Elm Street, for instance. That is a beautiful example of, even in the 80s, like taking that final girl trope and making her awesome. She's not stupid. She takes action. And I think that's the thing that, we probably both have like a reaction to. Like, just fucking do something. Stop screaming. I don't care who you're sleeping with. Sleep with the whole football team. But when the guy comes after you with an axe, like, don't just lose your mind.
Yeah.
So, what are some horror movies that have come out recently where you see, like, girls, like, what are the new roles? Is there a final boy? Have you guys seen any final boy?
It's always been final girl. But I also feel like the final girls have gotten stronger.
Yeah.
Every
Much
decade. Every decade, the final girls have gotten stronger.
and smarter as well.
Yeah.
And
For
I'm
sure.
going to throw a kind of mediocre movie out there, but Happy Death Day.
I love Happy Death Day.
Well, I do too, but generally the reviews are mediocre on it. But the lead character in that, she's extremely smart and she fights back and everything else. So I love this shift that we are seeing, especially in the past decade, of how much stronger that final girl is. And I wonder if that designation of final girl is going to shift away from being called final girl.
Maybe survivalist or something.
I don't know.
Right? Happy Death Day is such an anomaly, too. She's not a virgin, and she's beautiful.
Yeah.
And she's also a bitch at the beginning of it. And so it's also this amazing character arc, which you rarely see in a
Right.
horror movie, of watching someone go from being kind of despicable to honestly pretty awesome.
Usually you hate them. If you hate them in the beginning, you're happy when they die.
The ones that you hate, they're meant to die. That's like the fodder that you don't
Yeah.
care about, but we got to raise that, that
Exactly.
body count.
Well, and also I think I've personally seen, and I think we've covered a couple on the cast, like almost like an anti-hero role for the girl. Like we just watched American Mary for our last cast, and like
Right.
she was technically probably considered a bad guy because I mean she was kind of cutting people up. But like you were cheering
little.
for her. You just like, yeah, like no big deal. Or like we watched Raw recently as well. And she was also, cutting people up. But we also were rooting for her. So like I have
However-
seen a little bit of a shift like that.
To interject there with American Mary, we root for her because what happened to her that brought her to that point? If she
True.
were just,
It's like I spit
American
on your
Psycho
grave.
on everybody. Exactly.
Not really, but kind of.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if she hadn't been either tortured, humiliated, whatever the
Right.
situation is, then we probably wouldn't,
Which
it would be
make her,
interesting.
she would be a villain then.
It'd be interesting if the roles were reversed. Just take any normal like Friday 13th and switch it and have Freddy is now Frida. And how would we would we be rooting for her? They're laughing at my name. It was the first one I could think of.
I think we're about to watch a movie for Sunday's podcast that's called You Might Be the Killer. And that's the closest to a final guy I've ever seen. That's the closest I've ever seen it get.
But what's
Fascinating.
which movie was it again?
It's called You Might Be the
You might
Killer.
be the killer.
So you have watched this or
We're watching it for
Okay.
this coming podcast.
Is it an
So-
American film?
Yeah.
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 And so, obviously, you don't have to say to give anything away, but
That's fine.
the thing is, what's the counterpart? So you have the final guy. Is it a female or is it a male that's killing them? I mean, you don't have to. No, I mean, just rhetorical. Just rhetorical. Like
The
if you
answer
replace,
is yes.
Yeah, we
It's
can't,
both.
we
It's
can't say
non-binary.
because Maddie hasn't seen it and Greg's got his ears covered.
No. I mean, just rhetorical. I mean, just like throwing that out there. What if every role were reversed? If Jason weren't a male, if
Right.
it was a female,
Exactly.
How would we feel?
about
Would we
that?
root for the
I
bad
don't
guy
know.
just
It wasn't
because
in the
it's a
first movie.
female?
I don't know how well we would grab a hold of that. I
Right.
think it would be such a shock that I think it would be hard for people to suspend their disbelief. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be done for that, but I remember reading an interesting exercise that a film professor kind of gave his class, and that was, I want you to take just your basic male tropes, and in this case it was like Western film, and just put women in, not in those roles, but take women's roles and make them as powerful as two gunslingers fighting in the same. So it's two madams fighting, over two houses of prostitution in the same Western town. Suddenly, everything seems less important, more jokey, and you're like, so women's roles in general, especially when you look at them through a more stereotyped lens of film, that requires simplicity in its narrative. Just are not that powerful, and we don't believe it. It's only now, honestly, 2019, where you can have movies like Captain Marvel or Wonder Woman, and I mean, I'm just grabbing those out of the air, but senses of women not only being superheroes, having those superpowers. I guess the middle ground would be women in just regular everyday roles that also felt powerful in a film.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, actually, it was something I was reading about. There was a tweet that James Woods had put out about, had you seen that, about The Walking Dead and about how it's an estrogen fest now and they should have paid Andrew Lincoln everything that he wanted to come back. And of course, Michael Cutlitz comes in and is like, he didn't leave because of money. It's because he wanted to be with his family. So it's interesting that, you know, this person and probably several people are thinking, okay, well, this show that now has majority of it is women, at least front running it. And it's an estrogen fest. And if this were the real apocalypse, you know, it's not believable because women wouldn't survive. Men would survive, but women wouldn't survive. So it makes me wonder if that's why, you know, because people still have this idea that women are weak. They can't, you know, they wouldn't be able to drive a movie like that where they're the killer, unless it's because they were enraged because of something. They were attacked or they're brutalized or whatever. Then they're enraged. It can't just be because they're crazy.
Women can't ever have power unless they've been brought to such a broken place that
Yes.
they will take it. But I will say, I think that most popular filmmaking is always about 15 years behind the times.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys are still, you know what I mean? In another 10 to 15 years, guys like that are not going to, I don't think they'll have that same reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But for now, still for them, it's like 1999.
Mm-hmm.
This is not working. What the hell? I don't want to see all these women on my screen in powerful roles. That's not how I want to live my life. That's not how my entertainment rolls. Those poor babies.
Well, that's, I don't know if any of you guys watch the Hulu series Harlots, but it is really, really good. And it has a lot of really strong female characters. And it is about what, Dorothy, what you had said earlier. It's about two madams at different brothels fighting over their territory, over their
It all came full circle for you.
It's so good, but like at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, are guys attracted to this movie because it's about quote unquote lusty women?
Yes.
Like there's like, thank you, whoever that was. So I don't know. I feel like there should be a movie like that you can like attract people in because it's a good story and people will watch it, and not just because there's like breasts and stuff in it. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, why does there always have to be something that lures people in? Why can't it just be a good women-centric movie without it being like a revenge plot?
Maddie,
or like,
you're so right. You know, when women start transcending the objectification, when it's not just about could she have babies or could I have sex with her, that is when things become different. Like if you look at 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, right? What's that actress's name? It's Frances McDormand, right?
Yeah.
I felt like she really transcended gender there. She was warm and motherly and also just a stone cold, like, not killer, but you know what I mean? Just do whatever she needed to do.
Yeah.
She wasn't beautiful, but she was riveting. And that's what I would love to see more of.
I find her incredibly attractive because she's so strong.
Yeah.
I mean, as a person, as an actress, not just the characters that she plays. She's amazing.
Is that a cultural thing too here in horror? Like if you look at like Asian culture and like those movies, I feel like there's stronger female characters always in those movies. Am I wrong on that point?
Wow, I would have said I would say no.
The other way? Okay. I guess
it's probably the movies that we watch.
Yeah, maybe
that we've noticed that.
Okay.
well, and that's like, I'm sure everyone has heard my rant about how much I hate nudity in horror films, but I always say I hate it in American films because I have no idea what other cultures how other cultures view their women and view gender roles and view sex and all that stuff. So I'm like, no, my rage is purely concentrated in the American cultural phenomenon that is just titties in horror movies.
If it drives the plot in some way and it makes sense in it, then fine. But if you can do the same scene without it in there and it makes perfect sense, like obviously if it's, let's say that there is a couple that's having sex, you can't have them in a snowsuit. You know, that's not going to make sense. You don't have to necessarily focus on it, but if it's
you
something
can still
that
do those
drives,
scenes without showing.
Right. Yeah. So that like if you can take it out and it still be a good scene and it makes sense, then there was no need to have it in there. So only if it drives the plot in some way. Like maybe it's a scene. Carrie's in the bathroom. She's in the shower. You don't have to necessarily show it, but you know she's cleaning off in the shower. It's organic. It's not, oh, look at her, look at, you know, it's not focusing in. Horrible movie, but bordello of blood right on the screen. Boom. Just fill up the entire screen side to side of, pair of tits. And so it's like, was that necessary? But also it was a campy movie, so it's forgiven. But there's so many movies that are kind of like that. They focus on it. Like, if you're really getting chased by a killer, you're probably one, not going to be sleeping naked, but two, you're probably going to grab the first thing you can to protect yourself, like a blanket, it's something. And so it's just kind of funny to me when I see all these women that are running through and they're just completely naked. And it's like, you probably would have grabbed something on your way out the door.
And I'm sorry, that is so uncomfortable to run with like your boobs just like flying loose.
Maddie, real.
It hurts so bad. So like even like if I couldn't find anything to cover up, if I was being chased by someone, I'd be like running through the woods like cuffing my girls. Like just don't move. Don't move, ladies. We'll get out of here.
We'll make it through, Lefty. It's okay.
Oh my God. Well, this is kind of this next question is kind of based off what we just talked about, but also Dorothy, you shared a really, really cool article earlier today, I believe, about women in cinematography and just like who we should be watching out for and stuff. And do you think there is kind of a shift in the roles that women are taking in the horror industry, not just on the screen, but like in cinematography, in directing, and Heather in special effects? Like, is there more of a focus on like new and upcoming horror creators?
I think that the industry is working hard to create more diversity, gender diversity. For that, yes. You are seeing more female cinematographers, more female, what I would think of as the big boss roles, for sure. But I would lay money that they are still rare, that they are still outweighed by probably 70%. And that's just a guess of guys in those roles. What do you think, Heather?
Yeah, I agree. Plus I'm still rather new to the effects world. So, there's very few names that I can think of. Venial is the first one I could think of in the effects world. So I know that there's several, I'm sure. But, it gets outweighed by all of the Greg Nicoteros and the Dick Smiths and like all of them in the world. And then on top of it, when you do have females at the helm, you have the group of people, which, there's always going to be that group of people that are like, they're going to ruin it. Any particular film series, if a woman takes over, then they're going to ruin this thing that I like because they're not going to do well. I find that a lot. It's still toxic. So even though we still have, we have more women doing some of these leadership roles in film, it's still very toxic behind it.
It's hard in a lot of cases for those women. I was thinking about the woman who directed the first Twilight movie. They did not bring her back, and there was a whole bunch of kind of slandering her reputation. Like she cried all the time, and she wasn't able to communicate with the crew, and they didn't tell her, and she wasn't very assertive. To my mind, just bullshit. When I think about every director that I've ever known who has anxiety freakouts on the set, who loses it in some rage-filled scenario, or needs to go to their fucking trailer and cry.
Everybody has their thing.
That happens all the time. And so that's like a fucked up double standard, I think, if you find yourself in a toxic situation, like you said, that you cannot win. That's unfortunately how that goes. Yeah. Because there are two things that really keep women from moving forward in an artistic and creative, bigger environment scenario. One is being objectified and being seen as a sex object. That's the only reason that you're there. I want to date you. I'm going to harass you. That's the only thing that I'm thinking of. I'm not seeing you as a person, much less an artist. And the other thing is not getting access to the tools and the time and the attention. Everyone else has, the camera. That's changing probably more than anything, honestly.
Well, that was something that I thought was kind of interesting with this new Pet Sematary movie that's coming out, because the original Pet Sematary was directed by a woman, and in the 80s that was kind of a thing.
That's right.
And then I thought it was interesting that they didn't hire another female director to do the remake. They hired two guys to do it instead. And I was just kind of like, was that a decision that they made because they thought, well, these are the best people for it? I just kind of wondered why they didn't take that legacy on as a tribute to someone who was doing something new.
Wow, that is a great question. And I would side note and say, when are we going to see like 2 women directing teams? Like we're seeing all of these 2 guy directing teams. Heather, are you ready to step up?
Right.
All right.
Yeah. I've had some,
There we go.
rumblings around the back of my head.
Yeah.
Well, have you guys seen any of the movies by the Soska sisters, the 2 German twins? I mean, that's the only female directing group
They
that
did
I can
American
think of
Mary,
right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They have Rabid coming out. They did American Mary. They did See No Evil too. Yeah. Dead Hooker in the Trunk.
That's the one that I'm the most familiar with of their oeuvre.
Yeah.
Which
I've never seen that. Okay.
Dead Hooker in a Trunk feels so early 2000s to me. And I don't necessarily mean that movie
And it
itself.
could be a comedy.
But just like the trope of a dead hooker in the trunk. So, anyway, whatever. Anyway, go ahead, Maddie. Sorry about that.
That's okay. What creative roles would you like to see women taking more of? Like, do you want to see more female directors, more female special effects artists, more what? Like, what would you prefer to see?
I would love to see a female gaffer. I would love to see a woman that was working with light and really like knew what she wanted, knew what atmospheres to create. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I have to research more into it, so I'm not quite sure how many female effects artists out there. Obviously, we've seen people on Face Off, and there's quite a handful. It's a good grab bag of column A and B, but it'd be interesting to see just how many people are out there in the field in a leadership role and not just part of a team. Like, oh, you're effects artist number 4 and you filled up the tube with blood. How many people are out there creating characters, costuming. Yeah, and there's probably quite a few females in costuming. That's probably pretty
and beauty makeup,
right?
Hair. That's a different scenario. But you know what? You don't see a lot of. I don't think women as production designers.
Right.
That would be cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Is there anyone in the horror industry that you really look up to?
Wow.
Dorothy's face when you asked that question was the best, by the way.
Is there?
I don't know.
Freddy Krueger. I'm just kidding. That guy's a jerk.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I have an answer for that. Boring.
I guess I don't know about look up to necessarily, but the mythos of Night of the Living Dead, I guess, is one that I really like. Advertising agency by day, that's what they were doing in, I guess, Philly, right? Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And then decided to make a horror film with all of their buddies and friends and just kind of put that together. That speaks to me. But that's not, that much different probably than just a Robert Rodriguez or anything else. I think it's the advertising agency part that draws me like, yeah, man, do that.
I don't know. I defer. I'm not sure. It's really hard. I mean, I feel like my time, even though it's been at least, 6 or 7 years now, I feel like my time is still in that infancy level. And so, while I know a little bit of this and a little bit of that and, hear names and, buzzwords and whatnot, it's, do I want to say that's the person that I look up to, just because I know of that person's work? So yeah, that's really hard. I would say for me, anybody that does something like they were the innovator of something. So just as in general, like they had no idea how to do this. And so they did the most bizarre, ghetto thing to make it happen. That speaks to me. So even if that's like an indie person, making something happen where they don't have thousands and thousands of dollars for these crazy rigs. And if they were able to make it, pull it off, and people were, that suspension of disbelief there, that's what I look up to. So I don't know if I have necessarily like a specific name, but okay, like I mentioned earlier with the Nightmare on Elm Street, just the sheet. To me, it's like, oh, wow, we could do that, and that's super cheap, and and it looks super cool. So I guess that's my idea of what's cool.
You saying that totally made me think. This is not necessary. I don't know him personally, what this person is like, but the guy who did the Paranormal Activity movies, that guy is a great example.
Yeah, the first person that does that, you're like,
about just like a super simple innovator.
Blair Witch, the first Blair Witch. That comes out and everyone's like shocked. Whoa, what is all this? And what did they do? They ran outside tents and they, shook the tent and they made rock piles and it creeped everybody out. And then, of course, you had a slew of documentary-esque type movies after that. But that first one where you're like, whoa, what is this that I just watched? It's pretty cool.
He really took that found footage concept and he turned it around. He made it fresh again and simple. I love all of those, all of the Paranormal Activity movies, and they hang together, which I think is crazy in terms of a narrative.
Yeah.
So yeah, that guy. Thank you, Heather.
Oren Pelly is his name.
What's his name?
Oren Pelly.
Oren Pelly. Yeah.
Looking forward to this year, what movies are you really looking forward to?
Happy Death Day 2! Yes, I can't wait.
I'm excited for Captain Marvel.
Real talk. I want to see Pet Sematary. Maybe. It's going to scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
When I saw The Grudge in the theater, I couldn't sleep for a month. As soon as the sun went down, I was like, what is happening? Did you guys hear that?
That's what's. Sorry, Maddie. I'm going to step on toes for 1 second.
Oh, you're fine.
That's what I find really interesting, Dorothy, is that you live kind of in this genre, and yet you find movies that still scare the shit out of you.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, Josh and I were having this discussion the other day that we can't find movies that scare us anymore.
Seriously?
We find movies that disturb us,
Yeah,
but it's
not
hard
really
to find movies that
effective.
really scare
I
us.
still watch movies through fingers, even though, I don't know how many times I've probably stretched out so many shirt sleeves of Kyle's because, I'm like watching it and I know what's going to happen. I'm like, I know how this movie works. I know what's going to happen. I know the formula. Oh my God, they're going to poke out an eye. Oh my God, they're going to poke out an eye. And I'm covering my face the whole time. And then they don't poke out an eye. And then I'm like, okay, cool. But every time that comes up, that's my thing. So when you guys made me make a fake eye, yeah. Assholes. Anyway, so I have a thing with eyes where it freaks me out when there's that looking in the peephole. It's like that person's going to lose that eye right now. So
I feel like I learned something about
you just
Heather
learned
today.
something about me. Yeah.
Now we know what to get her for
I
birthday
have
gifts and
protective
stuff
gear.
like that.
I have
Heather's got
I was
protective
gonna say,
gear.
I will definitely use this for good.
Oh God.
That's right. That's
Damn
right.
it. I forgot Maddie's there.
What about you, Maddie? What are you looking forward to?
I'm definitely looking forward to Pet Sematary. I am looking forward to Rabbit as well because I have this really strange obsession with rabies, and I will watch any movie that's like the basis for. I don't know why. It's gross, but I love it. That's actually part of my degree is what I want to specialize in large mammal diseases. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to is shit about rabies.
Shit about rabies.
Shit
If you're
about rabies.
if your thesis is not titled "Shit about rabies," I'm going to be real disappointed.
That's
That'll
what
be a
it'll
real
be.
ball
Is
dropper
shit
right
about
there.
rabies.
For me,
So Maddie's title on the show is shifting from the Scream Queen to the Doctor of Shit About Rabies.
Yes.
Yes.
The doctor of Rabinomics.
Rabinomics.
Oh my god.
Oh my God.
Oh gosh. I'm gonna ask this question. We all know this question was coming. Who's your favorite final girl?
I'm just licking the windscreen, Heather, and take this started off.
Oh man, I don't know. That's
Too late. I'm
tough.
jumping in.
Yeah,
All
jump,
right,
jump.
so
yeah.
I have two. Obviously, Nancy from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right.
She is the bomb. I would be her best friend in a hot second. I don't know if we could go so far as Carl the Girl Crush, maybe, but that. And then the second is, this is true from the 80s, but having met her recently made it even more so, and that's Kelly Maroney from Night of the Comet and Chopping Mall. She was the cutest, funnest, sassiest final girl. She seemed like a real person to me. And plus, I love Night of the Comet. Those are my two. Yay.
I was gonna say Nancy, but I was like, is there anybody else that I can think of? Because we kept on talking about her earlier. But
You were like, I don't know. It seems kind
I
of
don't
trite
know.
now.
Yeah.
God damn it,
I keep
Dorothy.
on
Don't
saying
stop
that
taking my
one.
answers.
jeez. Yeah.
We can count it. It's fine.
Okay. She gets 2 points. Yay. Let me choose the winner.
Well, I'll ask you both this as creators. What is on your horror bucket list? Like, what do you want to do? Like, your ultimate holy grail, if I got to direct or if I got to make this effect, like, what would it be?
I want to have no restrictions. It seems like a lot. Actually, we didn't have a whole lot of restrictions when we did Corruptor. I was able to get blood all over that one room.
So much blood.
So much blood. But it was fun. It was nice because, I mean, as long as we were able to clean it up, and you said it will clean up, right? Oh, yeah, we'll clean up. And it did. It cleaned up beautifully. I knew it would, but I usually have limitations. You can't get blood on the wall. You can't get blood on the floor. You can't get blood on the carpet. You can't get blood on this, that. And so it's like, this is hard. And so one of these days, I just want to be totally prepared and unleash a blood cannon, just like all over the place. Just go crazy with it. Just unleash it and not have it be in the cold, because I've had issues where blood freezes in tanks. So not have it in the cold, and, not have anything that plugs up, no tubes plugging up. Just unleash a fury. Just a bucket full of it and just like throw it on people. I think we did that to you once in the basement, didn't we, Maddie?
I think so.
No, that was Ashley. Ashley was the one that we threw cups of blood on her. Like, it was the last take, and we're like, and just like got her. That was awesome.
So, funny story real quick. Back when I did effects, we did make a blood cannon out of a wet vac. And we were in a new building down in the Haymarket, and the poor director had gotten taken an insurance out on this. But we were pretty much, there was one office that was already built in this, and the rest was just open for us to use. And we were trying to make this blood cannon, and we were trying to test it, and we couldn't find an outlet outside. So we were like, no big deal. Let's go test it out in the bathroom.
Oh, no.
No, yeah. Our director walked in, and everything is covered in blood, and it stained the white. It stained the urinal. It stained everything. And he comes in, and we're like scrubbing what looks like a literal bloodbath off the thing, and he just like walks in, all the color drains out of his face, and he just walks back out. So be careful with that blood cannon, because it does go everywhere.
But see, that's the thing, like, it would be nice to have a location where it doesn't matter, it's okay, it's fine, and just not have any, not have time restriction. That would be another one.
And budget.
Budget, time restriction, because there's a lot of times where it's like it has to work right now. And if there's a budget restriction, you don't necessarily have the money to test. You have to, I'm going to test with water because water's free. Well, water isn't the same thickness, and, it's just not going to be the same. So there's a lot of things that I wish that there would be, unlimited. Obviously, everybody wants unlimited resources, but it'd be cool if I could have at least one of those. It would be, we don't care what happens to this room, what happens to these costumes, just unleash fury. That would be cool.
It feels like a t-shirt to me, like Unleash Fury. Bloodbath.
Yeah. On the back it says bloodbath.
Yeah. For me, I would say there is a horror film that came out sometime in this last decade called The Pact. And I love it because it is so simple, and yet it is terrifying. And my goal would be to create something in a similar vein. I would love to work inside my limitations as they are, and yet create something that was powerful and memorable and entertaining and scary. That is like the fucking holy grail from my mind. So, yeah. But I also want to work on Heather's bloodbath.
Yeah.
So I'm totally...
I think we all want to work on Heather's bloodbath.
I would agree.
Everybody get in the bloodbath. I'll make it warm too, so it'll be,
This is great. Better and better.
Oh, this is great. Real quick, I want you guys to both talk about, Heather, I know you have an effects company, and Dorothy, I know you have a production company. I just want you guys to talk about those and kind of what the name is, where we can see your work, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, Heather.
Okay. Mine is Evil Forest Effects, and I am on Facebook. That's pretty much where I put all of my stuff. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to get clips of. Some stuff hasn't been released yet, so I'm hoping to either, get screen grabs or something, either from directors or me just cutting it myself to be able to put like a sizzle reel together. That'd be nice, because I do more than just effects. I do the props, and I do beauty makeup and different stuff like that. So it'd be nice to kind of put something together that encompasses the whole shebang, So, yeah, Facebook.
My Facebook presence is crap.
How's that spelled? CRR.
So check us out.
Facebook.com/crap.
Like that page. Our company is Unfiltered Entertainment, and that's me and Chad Hofschild and Andrew Johnson and Greg Kubicek. And you can visit our website, and we've got links to all of our stuff, shorts and features where you can watch it, etc. And the website is unfiltered-ent.com. So yay, check it out.
Well, I'm actually out of questions that I prepared ahead of time, so I'd like to kind of open a time for we'll let the guys speak, I guess, if they want to, and or if there's anything that we didn't cover tonight that you guys want to talk about, like now is that time. Open floor.
I was making some notes as we were going along, but then you turned around and went ahead and asked the questions, or somebody went ahead and answered it on their own. The only question that I had outstanding from my notes was, Dorothy, you had mentioned you're a Stephen King fan, and Heather, I don't know about you if you read Stephen King. He seems to be going through this renaissance right now. What is your favorite Stephen King book? What is your favorite Stephen King movie?
Ooh.
The book that scared the shit out of me was Salem's Lot. That is the book that I read, and when I was done, I took it outside and threw it into the woods.
Oh my.
Because I was like, this book is evil. If it stays in the house, the things inside of it are going to come out and kill me.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I would say book, actually, The Green Mile. There's just something about it. I know it's not horror, but there was something about it that I loved. And then movie, gosh, there's so many that are good, but Pet Sematary, that was one of the earlier ones that I had seen when I actually was able to see scary movies. It was like, oh, what's this, Pet Sematary? So I like that one as well. There's just Gage, oh my God, that poor little baby, oh my God, I can't even.
That book
think.
is. I'll say movie Silver Bullet, right?
Yes.
With the werewolf, right?
Yes.
Oh my God! And Corey Feldman, one of the Corys.
One of the Corys.
I don't know if it was before or after the movie came out, but for a while I had a book that was basically the movie script turned it novelized with these beautiful full color illustrations. It was intense.
Isn't that Gary Busey's in that also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the uncle. I got rid of all of my Stephen King books probably like 7 or 8 years ago because I was like, they're just too hardcore, man.
Yeah.
Did you watch Castle Rock?
Yes.
What'd you think of that?
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. I liked all the little references.
Yeah.
How
he
was
ties
fun.
it in with everything else in his universe.
Yeah. It was fun to try to pick them out and to see, obviously look at websites to see if there were Easter eggs that you missed. And it's like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that one. Yeah, that was pretty cool.
I like to talk about filmmaking in Nebraska.
Yeah.
So have you seen a boom in filmmaking in Nebraska since you started making movies, Dorothy? And have you seen like a boom in filmmakers and movies coming out of Nebraska since you started doing this?
I would say definitely. And I mean, yeah, it seems like every time I turn around, there's like some new kid on the block or just a new person that I haven't met or heard about. A lot of people, I feel like, are making shorts and, to some degree, this is not horror. It's just kind of filmmaking across the board. I'm seeing some high fucking dollar shorts getting made too. We're like,
the caliber is I mean, if
that's impressive.
Not that the first Prairie Lights didn't have good, stuff in it, obviously,
right.
But comparison to some of the stuff that we're seeing now, years later, the caliber that bar is getting set higher and higher.
I would agree with that. And I feel like, too, though, that is an ever kind of renewing cycle because a lot of those folks, I think, are moving away at some point to practice that elsewhere.
Yeah.
Guys, any other questions? Or girls, is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to touch on?
I'll just side note and say one of the funny things that I briefly thought that this morning I got up and I was like, man, I hope that this question doesn't come up. And then I saw it. Well, if it does, this is what I'm going to say. The question I thought might come up, or my fear was that might come up, is like, how are women so suited to make horror films? Is there a reason? Do they bring something special to the table? Oh. Are they better at blah, blah, blah? Can they such and such? And the thing that I was going to say was, well, we're intimately connected to blood. It just happens every month, bitches. And so, yeah, those are our credentials right there. Thank you. With a menstruation joke, comedy concept, I'll just end this whole thing. Girl power.
Except I don't have a uterus, and I think I'm the one that brings the most gore when we were talking about movies. So.
Girl, yes.
You've definitely added a dark side to our podcast.
Oh, happy to help. Well, if we have nothing else, real quick, we have a time where we get to pimp out stuff that we got going on. We got plugs, so I'm going to go ahead and start off real quick and just say, everybody, check out Heather and Dorothy's work, and also I would like you to go to womeninhorrormonth.com. They have amazing events. They have a blood drive that they do. This is their 10th year. They have a film fest. Just go and support women in horror. Your local women, your women all over. Just love us and our blood and our titties. And I will open the floor up to other plugs.
Team Maddie. I'm on Team Maddie.
Yeah.
Heather, your website or your Facebook presence again is
Evil Forest Effects.
And Dorothy?
Unfiltered-ent.com.
Excellent. Josh, do you have any plugs?
No, I just want to second Maddie's plug minus the bloody tits. Go check out Dorothy and Heather's stuff. They do kick-ass stuff. So go check them out.
They do. Greg, you got anything?
I feel like my plug would be a little underwhelming considering the amazing podcast that we just had. So I'm going to say I'm Greg the Movie Guy, and thank you, ladies, for stepping in. And this was awesome listening to.
It was such a pleasure and just such an honor to be invited to y'all's podcast. Y'all do such great work, and I was really flattered and happy to be here. So thank you.
Oh, you bet. Well, thank you. We definitely know that we'd love to have you on again, both of you, anytime. So if there's any time you're thinking, hey, I've got nothing else to do, let's go hang out with these. Well, three losers at the table here, and just sit down,
cuties,
and just talk shit about movies, because that's what we do. So I'm going to go ahead and plug that if you are a fan of the Frightcast, and we know you are, please help us out. Make sure that you head on over to iTunes or whatever platform you happen to listen to us on, and make sure that you rate and review us. You can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, and many, many more. You can also help us out with some of, the minor bills. Help us pay for the domains, for the podcast, for a couple things like that. Head on over to patreon.com/MidnightFrightcast. And make sure to check us out online. You can find us on Twitter @MFrightcast. You can follow us and join in the conversation on our Facebook group, Midnight Frightcast. And you can also find us on Instagram, Midnight Frightcast. So share, and share some more. Tell all your friends, post it on your walls. And invite your family. Make a dinner of it some night where you're just sitting around, maybe watching a movie, eating some popcorn. Turn the sound down on that movie. Just listen to us instead. And finally, make sure that you check out our films at midnightfrightfilms.com.
Well, awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you so much to our amazing guests from everybody here at Midnight Fright. Thank you very much, and have a good night.